what a lot of these non-duality people are doing is the antithesis of non-duality. You're taking that which is seamless and with the word spiritual, they split it right down the middle like a barbed wire fence across a
Hmm.
natural meadow for absolutely no reason. This is material and this is spiritual. And that is simply not true. It's one seamless manifestation. If you're on the east side, it might look more spiritual. If you're on the MC square side, it's solid as a brick. But it's all of it. It's not this or that.
Welcome, John, to this show. I'm so excited to talk to you today. It's amazing. It's been 12 years.
Been 12.
Actually, it was just before New Year. I remember now. Maybe it's
Yeah.
exactly 12 years ago that we talked.
Uh-huh.
Right. Well, you gave me an opportunity then. That was the first interview I had with all this new seeing, new expression of this liberation unleashed, and everything was just born. It's amazing.
Yes. Yes. We had several guests at the time that were first ever to be acknowledged or introduced, and but uh, we also had the non-dual crowd
Hmm.
come on, and they were all very similar in their take on mostly conjecture on Advaita Vedanta,
Hmm.
uh, about the unknowable. They speak of knowledge, but there's no knowledge if you're unconscious.
Wow. So, welcome everyone. It's John Troy, the wizard. He used to run Sages. What was it? Um,
Conversation with Avant Garde Sages.
Avant Garde Sages Radio. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a local radio show. Uh, I was being interviewed. I just sold my company, and and I was being interviewed by a host on a local radio station called Naj, and when that was his last show he was going to do, and after the show he says, "You can have this slot if you want it." So then I contacted my friend Trip Overholt and said, I can't do the heavy lifting here, but I can be the producer of it, etc. And you want to join me on this? And he said, yes. So we we started we started out and started interviewing people, and we got quite a large audience.
I remember. Yeah. Okay, so now we are on this show, and this show is called Awakening Now. And it's about awakening. And awakening, word awakening means different things to different people. And I get to talk to people who think they have had an awakening, but from non-dual perspective, from this angle, it hasn't happened yet. And I get to talk to people who didn't have this non-dual awakening, and everyone in between. So it's pretty wild. But I want to know what awakening, what this word means to you. Like, how would you define it?
Uh, Over 50 years ago, uh, I was around 30 years old. I'm 84 now. I went to visit a friend who was having a party, and I was a little early, and I was sitting on their floor, and I put on a pair of headphones. Headphones were unique back in that day. And where the music would play inside your head. And so I sat down on the floor and put the headphones on, put on a new album that I'd never heard, and closed my eyes, listened to the music, and out of nowhere I was drawn up. The visuals and perceptions felt like I was being drawn up into a point of manifestation that was just coming out of nothing into something. And as I felt like I was being pulled up into that, boom, everything imploded. And the sound was a tremendous, what they call an ohm, but a very vibration, a lower vibration that was electrifying, and became my sense of primacy of existence. And then it stopped and dropped me, and I turned inside. I call it at the time turning inside out. And I had what they call an out of body. It was galactic in nature, and then I came to. I was sitting on the other side of the room, and I opened my eyes and I looked at a little girl who was sitting on the sofa in the room, and I saw myself, and I felt like I had lost I thought had lost the primacy of existence. And what was arising in its place was everything, or what we call synchronicity today. And synchronicity started living me. And my life totally changed. I lost my family, I lost my job, I lost everything. And I'd been fairly affluent. And I found myself homeless, wandering. I had met a man in the hills of Jamaica who invited me to come live with him in the jungle. And I took him up on it and went there and spent a winter with an illiterate man in the jungles. And he was awake. He and I communicated, and we shared the same perception, or in our own light, but we shared that. And I lived with him for a winter, and he served me and built a bamboo house for me to live in with a dirt floor, and totally cut off from civilization. I came back and I started running into remarkable people and remarkable circumstances that took me on a pretty profound journey. It was all synchronicity. Being homeless didn't seem to be a problem. There was always, I don't think I ever really got hungry. I did sleep in some bizarre places, tobacco barns, floors. I even slept on the pavement on the street one night. But I started meeting people. Trip asked me what it was like, and I said, "Have you seen the movie Forrest Gump?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "It was like gumping it. It was like just going with whatever wanted to happen," and that earned my trust and faith to trust whatever and not feel so uptight about it. met Swami Muktananda, if you've ever heard of him,
Mm-hmm.
that, and began a 7-year relationship with him until he died. And he was very playful, and but my last meeting with him in upstate New York, before he was to leave America and go back to India, this wizard character had emerged in those 7 years in my playfulness with him. And a friend had invited me to live with them in a commune on Miami Beach. His grandfather owned a mansion there and had died, and he'd gotten the mansion. So my wife and I, my new wife and I, were invited to spend time with there. And that very same time I was there, Muktananda had an ashram opening right a few doors down the street, part of the synchronicity. So I had an opportunity to have an ongoing relationship. And I was making a candy bar at the time, and he loved them, and I would take them, bring them his, because I used some Indians like cardamom and some stuff like that, and a fruit nut. It's called a Power Pal. It was one of the first power bars. And but the wizard character really developed and became the name of my company, and my local people. I've always lived kind of close to the same place here in North Carolina, where I was born and raised. People put the wizard nickname on me, and it stuck, and I couldn't get rid of it.
Well, that's a beautiful nickname, wizard, magical life.
My wife had made this wizard hat. I wore at trade shows and things with a full wizard outfit. So on my last trip to see Muktananda in New York, I grabbed the hat to take with me. I thought I'd give him the hat because he was a hat guy and everything, and it kind of the whole vibe of it had him on it. So Roberta Flack was there, and she had her band in there, and she did Killing Me Softly and dedicated the song to Muktananda.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't a big crowd in there, but at the end of the evening, which was the last evening, and they had some local dignitaries speak, etc. I got in line as a few who wanted to say a last goodbye to him before he left for India. And I had the hat, and I was standing in line, and then all of a sudden, I was on the other side of the room. 15 minutes or so had passed. I was standing next to this statue of Lakshmi pouring out riches, and the hat was sitting right under it. And I was stunned because I'd had some kind of amnesia or something that time was cut out completely, and the ends were spliced together so that it went seamlessly from standing in line to being on the other side of the room instantly. It just was a wow. And the first thing I saw was Roberta Flack walking towards me, looking me right in the eye. So I looked around and I said, "What happened?" She says, "You put that hat back on." And I said, "I feel stupid if I walk around with that hat on." Said, "No, the master put it on your head and you're to wear it." So I inquired, and Roberta described to me the fanfare and him putting the hand on my head and then him leaving, and that was his last thing. And I'm not aware of any of that. That's zero recollection. So I was later informed that that phenomenon was called a Nirvilkalpa Samadhi.
Oh, see. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And a Nirvilkalpa Samadhi is like dreamless sleep
Uh-huh.
or going under anesthesia.
Uh-huh.
It's a total wipeout.
Right.
But yet, in a Nirvilkalpa Samadhi, the body remains animated and goes through its normal things without any consciousness going on.
Wow. Well,
So,
that's a very wizardy experience.
so this was the antithesis of every spiritual experience I ever had.
Uh-huh.
By far the most meaningful. By far.
Right.
Because unconsciousness is a fact.
Mm.
It's just a fact. And so much of the spiritual experience and everything, and attaching conjecture onto the spiritual experience about what might happen after life.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know.
Right.
So it's all conjecture. If you have a near-death experience, and I had that myself 5 years ago with cardiac arrest, where my heart completely stopped beating.
Oh, wow.
And it hasn't beat since. I'm fully paced to keep.
Mm-hmm.
But I had the same phenomena during that when my brain wasn't getting blood. It was no different than Nirvilkalpa Samadhi, just an utter. So there's no knowing about it.
Right.
There's no knowing. Knowing doesn't work. So the promise of existence of the narrator in the head was destroyed. And what's left is the synchronicity, everything unfolding in the now in the only way it can. And the sense of agency, being able to change that, brings frustration, a futility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The seeking itself is suffering.
Mm-hmm.
When we had our chat 12 years ago, you were on the same page. Mm-hmm. And that this trade, this non-dual trade, was branding one's own insight and renting it back to them, holding them in subjugation. And I started speaking out about it, just like you.
Mm. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing this. It's incredible.
So my life flourished. I built a big organic food business. I sold it. I became very well off. Everything keeps unfolding. I keep meeting during this period so many of people in this non-dual trade. And then I became best friends with Ramana Maharshi's nephew, Ganeshan. And he and I traveled together. We stayed in one another's homes. We bummed around. We had a lot of fun together. And I helped him put together his autobiography. I had access to the archives at the ashram. I got secrets that had never been shared before that reveal the ordinariness of those people, that family. And that was all synchronicity again. So I have those insights that go along with my own perception without trying to be a Ramana Maharshi. Ramana said, be as you are, but very few people got that. Be like Ramana. And then
Yeah.
follow his actions and be a wannabe, a Ramana wannabe, not awake.
Yeah. Well, that's seeking. Seeking is trying to be or become or get somewhere or run away from something rather than like, oh, okay, this is already here. What's going on here?
Yeah.
Wow, what a remarkable life.
But I'm a secular person. I'm not a religious person at all, never have been.
Same here.
I have a lot more fun, I think.
So you met quite a few gurus in your life.
Yes, and just coming across naturally, just falling into. I met Ram Dass at a friend's house early on when visiting near here. When he first got back from India, he introduced me to Bhagwan Das, who was the guy who took him to see his guru. We got to be friends. I visited with him. He visited with me. Just the whole crowd, it just kept unfolding. So I and I never had a darshan that wasn't mutual.
I guess the scene has changed so much over those 50 years. Here we are in this end of 2023, and all this scene is so different. I wonder, what do you see now? What are your observations?
The same.
Same.
The what I call the narrator remains like a ghost, but is not the primacy of existence. That's the illusion. The narrator in the head that flickers like sunlight on water is impermanent, transient, and not the primacy of existence. Because the primacy of existence is seamless with everything. It's all one universe working together and blooms. My take on it is that awakening is biological. We bloom like flowers. We're like a bud, like a rose bud, and for some, that bud breaks open and blooms and kisses the sky. And it's a part of us, of a maturity. And everything is different after that, just like it is rose. It's a bloom. It's not, we don't need to learn how to bloom any more than we need to learn how to see with our eye. That happens, that bloom opens up. Or it may not all flowers bloom.
Not all flowers bloom.
Not all flowers bloom. And it's not to go prying open buds doesn't work. There's a violence in that.
Right.
But to appreciate a bloom and to recognize a scent is really beautiful. And everybody has their own unique bloom that nobody else has access to.
Yes.
Nobody. Nobody.
I
So
think
to
the
be a
scent
light,
is that real sense of sweetness. Like, hmm.
so as my friend Robert Saltzman says, you don't want to take Ramana Maharshi's head and put it over your own head. That's not going to work. Be a light unto yourself.
Right. And that's a beautiful message for everyone who's listening. I think this message is dismissed. You know, it's so obvious and so simple, and everyone is saying the same. But for the seeker, for somebody that is looking for that enlightenment, for that awakening, it's like, no, this is not good enough. This is not it. There, somebody else has it. Let's get this Ramana's head. Let's put it on. And so the seeking continues.
Yes, it's a business.
Right.
It's a business model.
Mm-hmm.
Ramana Shram is a museum.
Oh.
It's good curators, but it's no more sacred or holy than anything else. In fact, the family has nurtured that as a source of jobs and keeping that going. They're very well intended, but they took his storyline and engraved it in stone.
Oh.
You walk into the new hall, which is ridiculous, which drags people back into this history of this guy. But from my point of view, I'm a fan of L. Frank Baum. You know who L. Frank Baum?
No, I don't.
He wrote the fable called The Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
You familiar with The Wizard of Oz?
Uh-huh.
So he wrote that fable about the time Ramana Maharshi ran away from home, just like Dorothy did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
And it's a beautiful fable. And what really makes The Wizard of Oz a beautiful fable is Toto. Because Toto pulls the curtain back to reveal the ordinary. And then with that understanding, Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Lion, the Tin Man all discovered they are already what they're seeking.
Mm.
And Toto pulls the credit away from the Wizard of Oz and lays it right back on each of us. So Ramana's message of you had it all along and the Wizard of Oz message are the same.
Mm.
Had it all along. One is secular and is reached, and that movie is still today the most watched movie in history.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
It reaches far more people. It will impact far more people than Ramana Maharshi ever will. Because it's a better story, because of Toto in it. The Ramana Maharshi story lacks Toto. Because Ramana Maharshi was an ordinary human being, just like you and I. And the idolatry can rob that primal understanding. Now, it's interesting to note that L. Frank Baum in the late 1800s and his wife and his mother-in-law were all members of the Theosophical Society in India
Mm-hmm.
at that time, way back when. That's not many people know that. So that influence of these of what the essence of some of these teachings are in the Wizard of Oz, but put forth in a secular way.
Mm.
It reaches children, and nobody's ever made a religion out of it.
True.
And
I want to watch it again now. As I hear you talking about it, I'm gonna go and watch it again.
it's Dorothy running away from home. Hey, everything sucks here, and everything, and then only to find she comes back home away, and all her friends are there, and there's just no place like home. Just
Mm-hmm.
be as you are, as Ramana would say. That plucks it from the non-dual religious traditions,
Mm-hmm.
just like you plucked it from those old traditions.
Yeah, just giving a minute to sink it all in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I looked over all your tattoo art.
Oh,
Wow.
thank you.
Wow. You are really talented. It's really, it goes on and on and on. I'm very impressed.
Mm. My
You're really,
husband was real talent. I was just, playing. But when I saw this first, when I had this recognition, I went and got this tattoo. Look, it's the end,
uh,
death. Then I got this liberation and leaf symbol and a dragonfly. And yeah,
uh-huh.
it's all good. All set. I'm set. But I'm not tattooing anymore now for several years. I had we left England and we moved to Mexico, and life was there in the jungle with lots of animals. Not so much tattooing.
Yeah.
It was great. Yeah, I'm also, my life is carried by synchronicities. Like things happen, people come in, people go. Suddenly I'm in Mauritius. We didn't know what Mauritius was 6 weeks before moving here permanently. Yeah, but I don't get the luxury like you meeting all these interesting people in real life. I mean, in person. Well, thanks to Zoom and internet and Skype, I get to meet a lot of people here, but it's different. I mean, it's the best it can be now, and I
Yeah,
get to meet you.
it's seeing these people backstage,
Mm-hmm.
living the ordinary with people backstage. My first trip to India, I met this musician. His name is K. Sridhar, and he grew up as a child in the company of Muktananda's guru, Nityananda. And just a mutual friend, he's brought him over to my house. One night we met, we became great friends. And he's noted as the best sarod player. It's like a sitar, but a little more
Mm-hmm.
complex in the world. And he was the youngest player to ever play with Ravi Shankar and a part of that band. And he was the one who introduced the Beatles to their guru.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
He lives in the UK. He works with Peter Gabriel Studios. He
Mm-hmm.
tours, but he offered to take me to India for a month, and he would go with me. He never accepted a dime from me for anything. We traveled all over, and I had written to Papa G for a visit and was invited to his home, his bungalow in Lucknow, for dinner. And here was again another ordinary human being, very, very clear, very awake, simple, but none of this religious stuff around him. But he, after the dinner there, he invited us to a satsang the next morning, and we got there, and the room was full of people, and there he was, and the same old scene again. And I looked at Sridhar, and he looks at me, and we don't have to say a word. We both get up and walk out of it. Because that idolatry was coming together around him, around Papaji. That classic idolatry, where you got somebody sitting on the stage and the flowers, and you got stagecraft, a lot of Hindu stagecraft. Then you got people clamoring to get up close in front, almost aggressively. And the incense and the music and everything. And here we go. The show has begun because it's a form of entertainment for people. It's just a captive audience. You entertain them. It's a reason to be an entertainer. It's all entertainment. Every bit of it is. But these guys get up there and do their little song and dance and everything, and some of them get really rich off of it. And for me, I never had to pay for any of it. I never paid any of it. I never paid these people. Never. I mean, it would be an insult. So it's just a business, just selling. Eckhart Tolle took Ram Dass's "Be Here Now" and commercialized it, and wrote it in a more secular way. And Ram Dass died not a wealthy person, but a lot of friends. Eckhart Tolle is going to die a multimillionaire from selling and branding. They come in, they brand an insight, and rent it back.
In a way, I guess it's a way to spread the message. You know, whatever message is flying on through these people, you know, can fly further away on the wings of money.
I think, to me, the message is affirmation, not indoctrination.
True.
But so many of these non-dual business people turned it into a boilerplate business. In a book, you put the book out, it's the same dead words over and over and over again. They're not fresh in the moment, not arising out of that. So, I mean, it's as silly as trying to talk to a rosebud into blooming.
Okay, but let's say you read Rumi. I don't know if you ever read Rumi, but you can feel that essence. You can feel that fragrance, that freshness in the way that words are put together. It's not just words. There is an energy coming through there, or not?
But every aha that anyone ever has, they already understood it pre-verbally, and someone just added words to the understanding to elicit aha. So that there was not an indoctrination from that aha, but an affirmation
Yeah.
that pre-verbal intuition is correct. Just an affirmation. When it moves over into indoctrination, or you need to see this light, or do this or that or the other, it becomes a sham. All the rose needs is watering.
And sun.
The rosebud knows how to break up. If awakening is truly authentic, this human organism already has everything it needs to unfold and break open. Not for everyone, but for some. It's most likely evolution of the prefrontal cortex. But the idea that something survives after death, which is what most religions deal with, because people are afraid of dying, and they're afraid of dying because of all of the doctrines of sin. They put hell and reincarnation and all this other stuff to frighten people to govern their behavior right now, so that they can have a better outcome in their afterlife scenario. And there is none that we know of. The takeaway from a Nirvilkalpa Samadhi is just how benign being unconscious is. It's like dreamless sleep. We enjoy it in hindsight. We feel rested, good.
Mm-hmm.
So the takeaway is that there's nothing to be afraid of. That plucks the thorn of death from the rose. There's nothing to be afraid of. You're not afraid of forever before being born. You're not afraid of dreamless sleep. If you've ever had anesthesia, it's the same scenario as Nirvilkalpa Samadhi, except you're not animated. If you have cardiac arrest, where the oxygen can't get to the brain, you have precious few seconds. Over a minute, you're dead. The brain can't survive without the oxygen. And without the brain that's formulating the vision, you can't separate the function from the organ. The brain and consciousness are one in the same, not split apart. What a lot of these non-duality people are doing is the antithesis of non-duality. You're taking that which is seamless, and with the word spiritual, they split it right down the middle, like a barbed wire fence across a natural meadow for absolutely no reason. This is material and this is spiritual. And that is simply not true. It's one seamless manifestation. If you're on the east side, it might look more spiritual. If you're on the MC square side, it's solid as a brick. But it's all of it. It's not this or that. There's a business guru, his name's Jim Collins, and he wrote an essay one time about the genius of and the tyranny of the word or, and the genius of the word and. So really, reality is energy and matter as one inseparable manifestation. And non-duality is really what unconsciousness is. There's no knower and known. That's forever before being born is non-duality. Without duality, there's just nothing. And there's nothing to perceive, because that which is perceiving is a temporary reflection on the surface of thoughts. It's not permanent. It can't go 24 hours without calling it quits. So people in the non-dual trade want to enlighten the narrator in the head. That grows a bigger narrator. It goes, woo, 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 woo. And then that's the antithesis of truly being in the here and now. As the here and now, a few seconds of synchronicity reveals there's no doer. Just a few seconds.
Yeah. Mm. Okay, I'm going to ask you this. What is your best advice for the seekers that are still looking, still seeking, searching?
I say exhausting the remedies is the remedy. Go ahead, exhaust it. Like Dorothy and her comrades on the yellow brick road. Exhaust all your remedies. Then they're gone. Give it all you got till you see the futility of it.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And there's no need for that barbed wire fence that says on this side is spiritual, on that side is material. That fence has got to go. And then we find ourselves awake. Not that the narrator has awoken, the narrator has gone quieter and become temporary, like a ghost. It appears and disappears. It's not there all the time.
My narrator just gone quiet. It doesn't have any words. So what to do now?
So the ultimate residuum to me is stillness. And when I say that, it's a stillness that never started. Stillness is not moving through time. Time is moving within stillness. And stillness has no attributes. So our real darshans are just sharing the stillness. can't transmit it. And you recognize that yourself early on, which is remarkable because most people get swept up by the non-dual trade or one religion or another. I don't doubt that an evangelical would have a bloom. I don't doubt it at all. And then the Christian community would come and say, oh, you were born again. And brand that bloom and then rent that bloom back to the person who experienced the bloom and hold that person in subjugation. If they get it from the Wizard of Oz, they're free. If you read Walt Whitman and you get it, you're free. Like his poem to him that was crucified by Walt Whitman. My spirit to yours, dear brother. Though I do not sound your name, I understand you. We few equals. That's awakening. That's the mark of awakening. Yet nobody's making a God man out of Walt Whitman.
True. It's not that many people know of him at all.
Yeah.
And even less read the poetry or read what he had to say.
Yeah. He loved life, all of it. In the trenches, everywhere. He loved it. He didn't try to live a religious life with all those models of behavior. Doctrines of sin, shame, guilt, terror. Was free and innocent as a kid. So that native innocence I recognize with you. And I recognized it 12 years ago, that native innocence. Because pre-verbal being is not knowing. We can never know. And knowing is the prefrontal cortex narrating something according to our linguistic programming, the culture we're born in, etc.
Oh, it's really wonderful, and it's like a blessing to be with you, John.
Likewise. I can feel just right here on this Zoom that when I observe you in your, I could call it state right now, we're seamless. We're mirrors. We're mirrors of one another. That's all. Affirm for one another. You don't have anything to learn from anybody. And you share that with your friends and say, come on into the water with me. It's fun. We don't need the 10 Commandments.
No.
we don't want any commandments at all.
Oh, yeah. Do you have any maybe final words for the listeners? Whoever comes and listens to this show.
One of the best bodies of work I've seen on the subject. Are you familiar with Robert Saltzman?
Yes.
He has written a couple of books that are not pontification, but they're actual conversations with people in the secular world who have been in contact with him, because he invites that.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't have a thread of religious anything in it. He's totally secular. He was a very famous, well-known photographer. After a very successful career there, he decided to get his doctorate in psychology, and he accomplished that. And then he had a practice in psychology that was deep and meaningful, very successful, and in that a body of information arose around him in his conversations, etc. And he took the conversations and put them into 2 books.
Mm-hmm.
These are real spontaneous conversations in the secular domain about the subject matter. And I find his work about as clear and free of a lot of the religious indoctrinations that you find so many of these non-dual people using as stagecraft. To see through the stagecraft, the Hindu names, the incense, the chair, the whole nature of that whole paradigm,
Mm-hmm.
which is rooted in conjecture. They take the unknown, the veil of the ineffable, and paint their stories on it to control people. And they use reincarnation and indoctrinations, doctrines of sin. If you don't do this, if you don't do that, you could be born in a lower caste, or you could be thrown into some bardo that's hell, or you could go to hell for any of these things. It's all leveraged. All of it's leveraged. But Robert is like Toto. He's pulling the curtain back, and I pull the curtain back, and you pull the curtain back. And a rosebud is a rosebud, and it'll bloom when it's damn ready to bloom, and not before that. And to rip it open is violence.
Well, that's really important message.
Be as you are. Just be
Yes, you
yourself.
are.
Let it be.
Yeah, what else can you be?
Let it be. I mean, we can change one hair on our head, or the color of our eyes, or we got a little thing in our teeth that we're saying, we can't change that. We can't change that. We can't change the color of our hair.
I did.
You did. Can't change the color of your skin unless you rub orange and dye on it.
Mm.
So the idea of opening that bud through egoic manipulation is absurd.
Yeah, it's such a miracle. Such a miracle to see it open. Such a miracle to, wow. Life is unfolding already.
It's unfolding.
It's already unfolding. So who's there to say how it should go? Just
There
be quiet.
are no two awakenings alike. You probably heard a lot of in your work. You probably heard a lot of stories of the way there are no two alike.
No.
No. The bloom is unique to that human being, and it's a bloom. And yes, we can kiss the sky, that bloom. It's okay to say that, but that don't mean you're permanently the sky. And that don't mean any permanent experience at all. It's just this. And it may be pleasant, and it may be cosmic, and you may be kissing the sky, but the next moment you may be drinking the sewer too.
True.
All of it.
All of it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, John. Yeah. John the Wizard, for your wisdom, for your energy and your presence here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening and watching. And I will see you soon. Bye for now.
All right.